Out front now, David Gergen, former presidential advisor to 4 presidents. Julie Hirschfeld Davis is a New York Times White House reporter. And Shan Wu is here, is a former federal prosecutor. Thanks all for being here. Julie, you just heard what Kellyanne Conway told Christiane Amanpour about who the president thinks the opinion writer is. What are you hearing?
Well, I mean, of course, it's, as Caitlin said, it's been a big guessing game, and we're all hearing different things about who it could be. I mean, one of the things I think that's going on here is that we have known for a long time that this White House is full of kind of feuding factions, and often there's some competing interests and competing egos in the room, and I think there's some sort of behind-the-scenes shifting of blame going on by people who don't know who it is, but who are trying to sort of pin the blame on colleagues who they have long had an axe to grind against. And so there's some of that that's kind of muddying the picture. I think it's really hard to say from what we know, from what we've seen of the op-ed, who this person is. I mean, clearly it is a person, if you read it, it wouldn't stretch credulity to think that it's someone who has been working in the national security realm, because there are clearly security concerns that are raised. But for the president to say that this is a matter of national security, that the identity of the person be divulged, that really is a stretch, because there is no specific information in there that is classified information. There are no actual specifics given at all. It's more a portrait of a situation inside the White House that is obviously very concerning to people, because it confirms a lot of the reports that we've been hearing about and reporting on ourselves for, the last couple of years.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of stretching going on when it comes to this. I mean, David, Conway also in this interview seems to be contradicting the president on whether this whole thing is worthy of an investigation. Let me play this for you. Listen.
I'm not interested in the investigation of this. I guess those who are investigating, great. I really hope they find the person. I believe the person will suss himself or herself out, though, because that's usually what happens. People brag to the wrong person. They brag that they did this or they did that because I assume part of this. Isn't the goal here not what the op-ed pretends the goal is, Christiane? Isn't the goal here really to try to sow chaos and get us all suspicious of each other and keep the president off his game?
Is that what's happening? Are you all getting suspicious of each other?
So Kellyanne says there shouldn't be an investigation. The president is calling on Sessions to begin an investigation. Should they not be on the same page on this one, David?
Oh, they should be, but the one who needs to get on the same page is the president, not Kellyanne Conway. I mean, calling for the Department of Justice to investigate a statement that violates no apparent law. It's very difficult to figure out. Okay, if you found out through the Department of Justice, so what? You don't have a criminal case because there's no crime here that anybody can conceive of. There's no classified information that's been published. But more than that, okay, if I may say so, this seems to me a complete distraction. The White House, I think, is fueling this search for the person so that it will make the story about what the person had to say go away. And it's in effect they want to shoot
focus on who it is rather than the content.
Kill the message. Yeah, absolutely. They want to shoot the messenger so they can kill the message. And and what this person had to say is very serious. And we do know that Mike Allen, for example, of Axios, has reported he's had calls from other senior officials saying, "I could have written the same thing." This is not an isolated person. It is an individual, from my point of view, sounds more like a cry from the heart, a cri de coeur, by someone who would like the president to succeed, but is deeply, deeply worried by what is going on, and that we, the American people, deserve to know more about what is going on.
David makes a very important point, kind of, I think, for everyone to remember to not lose a forest for the trees on this, right? Another distraction of a distraction of a distraction. Because, Shan, on the most basic level, and maybe you can just put this to bed for us, can you figure out a law that was broken in any way with this piece?
No, Kate. They have an HR problem, not a national security problem. And if you look at what's been written, there's no violation of the law. I mean, I can see why someone like the president might think, oh gosh, if they talk about this, they might talk about something else. But if I was Jeff Sessions and you came to me with this, I'd say, Mr. President, this is an internal matter, and this is not something that's appropriate to use the Justice Department for, or the FBI. I mean, the FBI does not function as President Trump's PIs. They're not private investigators. They have an important function if there is an actual predicate for for criminal wrongdoing, and there just really isn't here. It really is a First Amendment question. Somebody's expressing their concerns.
And this gets us back to, Julie, I think I've asked you this a million times. What does Sessions do now?
Well, I mean, I think Shannon and David are right. There's really nothing for him to do. I guess he pushes back. I guess it's just a question of whether he puts out one of these statements that we've seen him put out a couple of times before in more remarkable circumstances where he says, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
But it does tell you something about the president. I mean, if we just step back again in the way that you were suggesting, that his first instinct is, well, that he is the president and he should have the ability to use his power to go and find this person whose identity he wants to know so badly. I mean, it's an instinct that is not really in keeping with what the definition of the president of the United States is. It may be in keeping with what leaders of some other countries that don't have the same rights and freedoms that our country has are. But, you know, it's quite something that his first instinct is to say, you know, what are the ways in which I can use this White House, my government, to try and target this person who has said something about me that I don't like.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Because, David, I mean, as Julie's saying, let's not gloss over this fact that the President of the United States is here, actually believes that the Justice Department should be fighting his fights, whatever they may be. And this isn't the first time, obviously. Just earlier this week, he made that abundantly clear when he lashed out at Sessions again for indicting 2 Republican congressmen before the midterms, for God forbid it hurt Republicans politically, at least in the president's view. I mean, it is pretty astonishing.
It is very astonishing. The president hasn't broken any laws himself. What he has broken are the unwritten laws about how the Justice Department is an independent agency and what the right use of power is by a president. And you know, I think the New York Times has a point when they're calling it an abuse of power and they just ran a long editorial day about the respect for the rule of law and where is it in this administration, and you know, and how corrosive the kind of efforts to use the Justice Department to go after people has become. When you violate these unwritten laws, what scholars call the norms of the presidency, you diminish the respect for the office, you diminish the trust that people have in the Justice Department, in the legal process.
And it is funny, when you talk about trust of the Justice Department, as Kellyanne Conway at the very top, Shannon, is talking about trying to, you know, that right. This is hurting the trust amongst the executive branch. It seems there's a lot of trust that's being broken here.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, for governing purposes.
Right. Go ahead, Shan.
And, I mean, the more the president talks about how untrustworthy the Justice Department is, the more he's ultimately trying to damage. And Sessions' dilemma here is, you know, A, how does he save his job? And B, to the extent he has any sense of the historical role of the Attorney General, I mean, he has to push back on that because he's really trying to preserve the credibility. If he continues to basically submit to the president's whims, he actually helps create the impression that the Justice Department is simply at the president's beck and call, which is absolutely wrong.
I will say this, and I can be wrong, but the chances that this president says he wants an investigation and may say it again and again and again, and then it never happens, and that's the way it is, chances high. Just look at the track record. Guys, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Out front next.